talking about performance-based assessment. After studying this module, you should be able to explain the concepts of performance-based assessment and its features, differentiate the two types of performance-based assessment tasks, explain the advantages and limitations of performance-based assessment, describe the steps in developing performance-based assessment, explain what is rubric and its purpose, give and describe the different kinds of rubrics.
In Assessment of Learning 1, we have learned assessment tools for knowledge and skills in cognitive domain. The knowledge and skills being assessed are memorization of concepts, historical events, mathematical procedures, and the like. Other skills such as writing poem or essay in English class, solving mathematical problem, baking cake in TLE classes, conducting experiment in natural sciences must be learned, which can be appropriately assessed using performance-based assessment. Hogan in 2017 pointed out the performance-based assessment, sometimes referred to as authentic assessment or alternative assessment, implies that students need to demonstrate skills by actual performance of a certain task rather just marking an answer sheet. Authentic assessment means the teacher must be realistic situation in the testing materials. The term alternative assessment, that is, alternative to select response testing. Performance-based assessment is a direct and systematic observation of actual performance of a student based on the predetermined performance criteria. It assesses the performance of students that represent a set of strategies for the application of knowledge, skills, and work habits. The performance tasks that are meaningful. According to Broaldi in 1998, performance-based assessment also provides the teacher the information on how the student understand and apply knowledge, and it allows the teacher to integrate performance assessment in the instructional process to provide additional learning activities. From the definition, we can say that students are required to perform a task or create an answer or provide that will demonstrate mastery of knowledge and skills rather than selecting an answer from the given list of options. Features of performance-based assessment. According to Gronlund in 1998, there are features of performance-based assessment that differ from other types of assessment. First, greater realism of the task. This means the student must apply the performance-based assessment needs longer time to assess the performance of the student knowledge and skills by demonstrating a task that shows application in a real-world situation. Second, greater complexity of the task. The tasks are difficult to understand and analyze because they are less structured problems that encourage the student to perform with originality and thinking skills, and they may have multiple solutions. Third, greater time needed for assessment. Performance-based assessment needs longer time to assess the performance of the student because of the difficulty of designing the task, the comprehensive nature of task, and the increased time needed to evaluate the result. And lastly, greater use of judgment and scoring. The evaluator should consider the set of judging criteria associated with the performance assessment. Also, the scoring approach must be congruent to the assessment purposes. This must be taken into consideration because of the complexity of the task, originality of the response, and in some cases, the variety of possible solutions that need a greater use of judgment in scoring.
Types of performance-based assessment tasks according to Gronlund, Lim, and Miller 2009. There are types of performance-based assessment tasks. First, restricted response performance test. Second, extended response performance test. Now, let's begin with restricted response performance test. It is highly structured with limited scope. The instruction of the task are more focused and the limitation are always indicated. There are examples of restricted response performance tasks. These are writing a one-page summary of the program, demonstrate how to set up cooking utensils, delivering a 2-minute campaign speech, and constructing a bar graph of the scores of 50 students in a quiz in statistics. In restricted response performance tasks, there are advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are easy to relate to a particular learning outcome or object. The administration is easy and the output is easier to judge or evaluate. Lastly, the performance task is more structured and so requires less time to administer. And the disadvantage is it prevents the students from demonstrating fully their abilities and skills. Second is extended response performance task. This type of performance task is less structured and broader in scope. Examples of it are by a teacher-student conducting a thesis and then presenting and defending their findings in front of a panel of judges, writing and rewriting a poem after being criticized. When a teacher uses extended response performance tasks, she or he can obtain better information about the student's ability to identify the crucial point of a problem to gather and integrate information for solving it, and to provide original and well-supported information. Focus of performance-based assessment. Performance-based assessment can assess the student's process, product, or both, depending on the learning outcomes. It also involves doing instead of just knowing about an activity or task. The teacher assesses the effectiveness of the process or procedure and the product or output used in carrying the instruction. The problem is when to use the process and the product. Use the process when there is no product. The process is orderly and directly observable. Correct procedures or steps are crucial to later success. Analysis is procedural steps can help in improving the product, and learning is in the early stage. Also, according to Granlund, use the product when different procedures result in an equally good product. Procedures not available for observation. The procedures have been mastered already, and products have qualities that can be identified and judged.
Now, let us know the advantages of performance-based assessment. First, it assesses complex learning outcomes not measured by paper and pencil. It could assess other learning outcomes such as mastery in baking under TLE class. It assesses the process as well as the product of the performance. It communicates instructional goals that relate to real-world context. It has practical goals like achieving knowledge and skills for students that is relevant in real-world setting. It assesses the progress as well as the performance. It involves the students in the process of assessing their own growth. This type of assessment enables students to participate firsthand for the activity. It recognizes that students can express what they know and can do in different ways. It recognizes and acknowledges each student's capacity and their diversity of application. Specific, direct, and understandable information about the students are available to parents. It could give parents information about their child's growth and activities in school. It enhances professional skills of teachers through collaboration with other teachers. It poses help for continuing professional skills and development of teachers. It can establish a framework for observing students that is consistent with their principles of child development. Along with the advantages of performance-based assessment are its limitations. First, constructing performance assessment is time-consuming. Second, scoring is often questionable because it is not reliable, most especially if the scoring rubrics are not properly prepared. Lastly, it measures only a limited scope of learning objectives. In developing or making performance-based assessment, there are steps to be followed. First, you have to define the purpose of the assessment. The purpose must be considered since it is vital in the process. An example to this one is to master skills in certain subject area. Next is you have to determine the skills, learning outcomes, and the taxonomy level. This is important in determining which learning outcomes requires performance assessment and which one is appropriate for traditional assessment. An example for this is to develop mastery in making critique regarding social issues. The third and the last step is to design and develop activity or performance task. But before identifying the activity or task, you should consider the time allotted for the activity, the availability of resources, and the data needed to judge the quality of the student's performance. The activity and task should be in line in the development of subject matter or learning instruction. Examples of tasks that the teacher can create may involve debates, solving mathematical problems, experiment in science class, presentation of historical events, and job and responsibilities. These steps must be followed in creating performance-based assessment. And in order to have proper assessment, scoring rubric is necessary. Scoring rubric is a scoring scale used to assess student performance along a task-specific set of criteria. Authentic assessments typically are criterion-referenced measures. That is, a student's aptitude on a task is determined by matching the student's performance against a set of criteria to determine the degree to which the student's performance meets the criteria for the task. And there are different types of rubric. First, analytic rubrics. Analytic rubrics resembles a grid with the criteria for a student product listed in the leftmost column, and with the levels of performance listed across the top row, often using numbers or descriptive tags. The cells within the center of the rubric may be left blank or may contain descriptions of what the specified criterion look like for each level of performance. Take a look at this example. This is the grid for the criteria, and this is the row for the levels of performance, and these are the cells for the descriptions of the criteria. Remember that when scoring with an analytic rubric, each of the criteria is scored individually. Analytic rubric articulates level of performance for each criterion, so the teacher can assess student performance on each criterion. In using analytic rubric, there are advantages and disadvantages. It provides useful feedback on areas of strength and weakness. Criterion can be weighted to reflect the relative importance of each dimension. It takes more time to create and use than a holistic rubric. Unless each point for each criterion is well defined, raters may not arrive at the same score. The second one is holistic rubric.
A holistic rubric consists of a single scale with all criteria to be included in the evaluation being considered together are clarity, organization, and mechanics. With a holistic rubric, the rater assigns a single score, or usually on a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 point scale, based on an overall judgment of the student work. The writer matches an entire piece of student work to a single description on the skill. The example of holistic rubric: articulating thoughts through written communication final, paper, or project. For above average, the audience is able to easily identify the focus of the work and is engaged by its clear focus and relevant details. Information is presented logically and naturally. There are no more than 2 mechanical errors or misspelled words to distract the reader. 3 sufficient. The audience is easily able to identify the focus of the student work, which is supported by relevant ideas and supporting details. Information is presented in a logical manner that is easily followed. There is minimal interruption to the work due to misspellings or mechanical errors. 2. Developing. The audience can identify the central purpose of the student work without title difficulty and supporting ideas are present and clear. The information is presented in an orderly fashion that can be followed with title difficulty. There are some misspellings and or mechanical errors, but they do not seriously distract from the work. 1 needs improvement. The audience cannot clearly or easily identify the central ideas or purpose of the student work. Information is presented in a disorganized fashion, causing the audience to have difficulty following the author's ideas. There are many misspellings and or mechanical errors that negatively affect the audience's ability to read the work. So now, let's proceed to the advantages and disadvantages of holistic rubrics. Advantages of holistic rubrics. First, emphasize on what the learner is able to demonstrate rather than what he or she cannot do. Second, saves time by minimizing the number of decisions readers make. Third, can be applied consistently by trained readers, increasing readability. Disadvantages of holistic rubric. First, does not provide specific feedback for improvement. Second, when student work is at varying levels, spanning the criteria points, it can be difficult to select the single best description. Third, criteria cannot be weighted.
Other kinds of rubrics. Developmental rubric. While other types of rubrics measure assignment or project, a developmental rubric tracks a student's overall progress towards proficiency. These continuum rubrics can span one standard, one subject, or one skills. Developmental rubrics are more time-consuming for teachers than analytic rubrics, but they are the most informative types of assessment tool. So, the developmental rubrics can help focus the attention of the students and the teacher back on the skills at hand and not the end resulting grade. For example, a teacher could use this rubric to assess the interpersonal and interpersonal skills and a student's cognitive functioning. Example of developmental rubrics. Rubrics as checklists. These basic rubric examples ensure that all parts of the assignment are present. They help students to keep track of each element of a project. Checklists also let teachers see whether a student fully accomplished an assignment or task, but they are not as informative as other rubrics. Checklists tend to be longer than other types of rubrics since each aspect of performance you are looking for in students' work or performances essentially becomes its own criterion. So, let us talk about the rubrics as checklists. rubric as checklist is a tool that has a list of criteria, similar to a checklist, but also contains descriptors in a performance scales, which inform the students what different levels of accomplishment look like. For example, checklists are useful in all subject areas because they are versatile and easy to understand. As long as each part of an assignment is present, the students receive full credit. An example of science project checklist includes a column for students to check their work before turning it in. Levels of performance in rubrics. There is no specific number of levels a rubric should have. It would vary depending on the task and your needs. A rubric can have a few as 2 levels or as many as you decide is appropriate. Generally, it is better to start with a smaller number of level performance and then expand if necessary. Making distinction in a student's performance across 2 or 3 broad categories is difficult. As the number of level increase, judgment become finer and finer.